Excuse me. Geez, I'm sorry to bother you. Direct from the Vegas Voice television studio, it's the Vegas Voice Scams, Schemes, and Senior Safety. Everything you need to know to avoid becoming a target of elder scams. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, the publisher of the Vegas Voice. Oh, just one more thing, Mr. Dan Roberts.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another segment of the Vegas Voice Senior Scams. I'm the publisher, Dan Roberts, and we're very fortunate to have with us today an expert really on elder scams, and that is from the FBI, Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Ray Johnson. Ray, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Dan, it's a pleasure being here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to our population, particularly our elder population, on the scams that we see every day.
You know, and you see every day, again, it's a real problem out there. And my question is, what do you do? What do you tell seniors, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, it's something that is growing every day. And we're getting the phone calls at the Vegas Voice between robocalls and emails and everything else. Where do you start on something like that?
Dan, that's a great question. You know, the elder population are a proud population. They're also a very vulnerable population. As you get older, I know for my parents are pushing in their mid-80s now. If they get scammed or they're involved in something they're not really proud of, it takes a lot more time to tell me, especially as an FBI agent in my background. But I can just imagine the pride it takes when your son, whom you've raised, is the one you have to report a victimization to. And that's one of the biggest difficulties we have in this area is the vulnerable population, and they're a very good population for technology scams, romance scams. They're often lonely. They sit around a lot of times waiting to talk to their children, their grandchildren. And any friendly voice sometimes can talk them into doing things that they normally wouldn't do.
My question is, and I think it's give me a complicated answer. I get a phone call from someone who's saying it's Social Security. And it's a 702-555, whatever number that is. If I give that number to the FBI, is it as simple as saying, here's the number, now go get the guy?
It's as simple as you giving us that number, but the investigative process is far from simple. And I would always say, if you're concerned about something calling from the Social Security Administration, the IRS, those are another big promoter of scams. Look it up online. Look it up in the phone book if we still have those that the elder population would use. Call a friend. Call them back. Oftentimes verifying that number can validate whether or not it's an appropriate call or not. I will tell you, most government agencies, the FBI included, will not ask for personal information over the phone without validating things.
Right.
If it's something crucial like a warrant, that's one of the things we see a lot of times, particularly in a vulnerable population. I know I got one the other day. Apparently, I have a warrant out for my arrest in Nigeria at this point, and I could resolve that right away. But I'm not going to give personally identifiable information. I'm not going to give bank account information. I'm not going to give anything like that. We are a hands-on government for the most part. If there is a warrant or there's some issue we have to do, we'll come to the home. We'll talk to you one-on-one. We'll show and validate who we are with credentials, with identification, and with proper information to prove what we're asking you for.
You know, Ray, one of the things that I see that people have called us on is they get a phone call and it's from the US Marshals office. So it's federal, so it really has a great effect. And they look on their caller ID and it will say US Marshal, and they'll say something along the lines, you failed to show up for jury duty. And because you failed, we're coming to your door in 24 hours unless. And that's when it gets scary because you believe them. It sounds legit. How do you tell people? How do you tell people to either double check or just hang up on them? I mean, that's again, especially for elderly people that have been told to be respectful, especially FBI and the U.S. Marshals office.
Absolutely, and I can tell you, growing up watching Wyatt Earp, the U.S. Marshal, that's a very important thing. It's not as important as the FBI, in my opinion.
Okay,
but it's still a very important thing. I will tell you, I'm not going to telegraph. If we're going to come to get you on a warrant. If you have a warrant out for you, we'll come to your door. We'll ask you to serve the warrant paperwork. And you nailed it when you said that, Dan. We are going to have a warrant for your arrest unless you pay us, unless you do something like that. That's going to be the big red flag. There's no debtor's prison in the United States. there is a prison. Obviously, there are multiple prisons, state, federal, and local. However, that's going to be a process that you're going to be very well aware of when we, the local police department, the US Marshals, the FBI, we'll come knock on your door and we'll do the prison that way, not a self-reporting, anything like that. So unless, immediately give us your phone number, give us your social security number, things like that, you never do that online because you never know where that call is originating from.
And again, going back to what we've been getting is a series of telephone calls. It could be anywhere from federal to state. I want to clean your carpet, et cetera, et cetera. And they're on that do not call registry. If I have that number, can that help you in terms of an investigation, or it's just so complicated that it can't be done?
Yeah, the information is always good. So more information is never harmful,
right.
in our opinion. The cases we investigate are very nuanced, they're very complex, they're very sophisticated. You give me a phone number, there are multiple iterations of that phone number, 702-555-1234, 1235. The more we have them in there and the more data we have and we can collect, the better off we're able to identify the potential scammer, whether they're a United States-based, whether they're an overseas perpetrator, or anything in between. If it's a robocaller, oftentimes the scams that we've heard of, and I'm sure you as well, it's a robotic voice that calls in.
Yes. Yeah.
And that kind of takes people back a little bit because particularly in today's day and age, how many times have you tried to call a bank and get a live person?
Correct.
So that's a sensitization that we've had, and in the elder population, I'm including myself in this. Technology has far surpassed my abilities.
Yeah.
I have a teenage daughter. Her technological abilities are far greater than mine will ever be again. And so we're so used to that, and we want to believe it. The government wouldn't lie to us. They're calling asking for my compliance with this warrant that was issued out of the Bank of Nigeria. Those are the kind of things that a vulnerable population like the elder population can really fall victim to.
And I guess then my next series of questions is, what do you do to protect yourself, and what can you do? But I'd like to start out with the fact that the FBI is teaming up with AARP. Can you talk a little bit about that? I can.
We have teamed up with our state partners, our federal partners, our local partners, our public sector, and our private sector outreach. The AARP, we did a tele-town hall a few months back where we allowed the folks out there to call in and ask questions of myself, the U.S. Attorney, law enforcement officials for these very kind of questions. Because oftentimes a lonely senior citizen is going to be by themselves and they don't have anybody to turn to. They get a phone call or they've fallen victim to a romance scam. Maybe they're a widower, maybe they're a widow. They get online to one of the dating services, of all the rage in the singles community, especially in the older communities. And they don't realize that they've never pressed the flesh, so to speak, where they've met the person. And they don't know if they're talking to someone of their own age, someone that they've found, or they've been what we often call catfished, where it's somebody completely different than what they've done. And so there's that validation that has to happen. AARP has a tremendous amount of resources that allow us to kind of get into a population we normally couldn't get into. And our whole purpose is to prevent the crime from happening, find the victims out there, give a comfort level for those who have been victimized, and allow them to know that the pride that they have, everybody can fall victim to anything.
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with age, race, gender. It can happen at any point in your life, whether you're young or old. And so the ability to present that information to us gives us the ability to stop it from happening.
Going on with that trend, it must be so difficult with the so-called romance things because we're not talking about an 18-year-old kid in love. It's an adult, it's a grandparent, and someone who is collecting Social Security and Medicare, and now they think they found somebody, and they were taken, and you can't laugh at them because they're deeply hurt, and yet it must be so hard for the FBI or anybody else to try and track it down.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's incredibly difficult to find the trail. But shows like this, groups like yourself that allow us this opportunity to talk it through and give that voice, that Vegas voice, if you will, to the population to be able to come out and talk to us. That gives us the opportunity to actually track it down. Those are the ones where it can be something as easy as a technology scam. It can be the romance scam. It can be one of the things we've seen trending is money mules, witting or unwitting. So the vulnerable population may fall in line with this romance scam. They think they found their partner for the rest of their golden years. And they may unwittingly be a mule for transferring money from one point to another. They may have a scam involving someone else, and they've asked their newfound love, hey, could you go pick this up and take it to someone else? That's the kind of thing we're looking at now, where they might not understand that they're now a victim, but they're unwillingly a victim. And so those are the ones that help us kind of lay a glimpse into, this person isn't only scamming the person who's their mule. There's another love interest out there that's providing the Social Security check or the retirement check or an inheritance or whatever the money is. Because the victimized population in this community oftentimes have more resources than an 18-year-old will have. You know, they've retired, they've gone through life, they've done the right thing, they've saved, they've put money away, and these criminals out there are going to target that population, and they're more than willing to talk it through. They're more than willing to be that sympathetic ear when they become a grandmother, a mother when they're an empty nester. Those are the kind of things that we'd like to get more visibility on.
Well, if you had to give one suggestion for people watching this, they read the Vegas Voice, how do you protect yourself? I mean, what's that number one rule, if there is one?
Yeah, the number one rule is just be smart about it. You've lived a long life. You've done the right thing. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. Yeah. And it's very difficult to think that you won the lottery. It's very difficult to think that you are the winner of this sweepstakes, and yet you never played. I'm not a lucky man, and I guarantee you that wouldn't happen to me. Although I've been told it's happened quite a few times. And
it happens all the time. Unfortunately, is it rude to hang up on somebody? I know one of the things that our seniors saying, "Oh my God, someone called up and they said, oh, I want to help and I want to give you this and I want to do that," and they find it so difficult just to take the receiver and just hang up the phone. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to do so? I mean, it's something where it's just not done by the older generation.
No, and it's not done in really the newer generation, if they would call. I mean, you can hang up on a text a lot easier than you can on phones. But often it's actually the right thing to do. And it feels weird the first time you do it. But if it doesn't sound right, let's say you're hanging up on somebody and it turned out to be a legitimate call. Right. They can call back and now you have a good story to tell.
Yeah, something.
Now you have a good story to tell. And that's the thing I would encourage anybody who believes they're being scammed is to take it for what it is. It's a scam, and they're not targeting you for any other reason than the fact that you might have resources, you're vulnerable, you look like you could be an easy victim. And if you hang up on them and it turned out to be your neighbor or a cousin or someone else, and then you just laugh about it. And then you have that long-lost connection that you've had there. So you turn a negative into a positive. But bottom line, it's absolutely not rude to hang up on a scammer. It's absolutely not rude to hang up, report them to the police, and it's absolutely the right thing to do to protect yourself.
Well, it's simple as that to a very complicated issue. And Mr. Johnson, Special Agent Johnson, I thank you so much for being a part of this show and part of the scams. We are very grateful to the FBI for participating and getting involved. And hopefully we'll get you on again in a couple of months and we'll update and see exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. Dan, I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. And this is Dan Roberts, publisher of the Vegas Voice for Senior Scams, saying we'll see you next time and protect yourself at all times.